Hello, everyone. Welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. And this is the Business Showcase, the late lunch hour. I hope you guys are enjoying your lunch, and I hope you'll take a little bit of time to spend it with us. And we do enjoy having you with us each and every time. So just a little homework before we start. I am Cece Shatz. I'm the Doyenne of Relationship Building. I am your host today. I am also the president of the Going Solo Network. And so it is so great to be here with you each and every time on all these various shows. And I want to thank you so much for joining us and supporting us like you do. Of course, you guys can reach me if you'd like at Going Solo Network at gmail.com. I love your emails, and I want to thank you so much when you do send me them. We're going to be talking about some of them on the shows, and I want to thank you for that. All of our information for the media is on GoingSoloMedia.com. And then all of our singles events and all of the things that's happening with the connection of singles is on Going Solo Network. So now we got the homework done. So let's get on with the topic today on our business showcase. We are going to talk about 7 secrets to free up cash today with our wonderful guest, Chris Miles. Let's bring him forward. He is a cash flow expert, and you're also a leading authority on quickly creating wealth by increasing monthly cash flow and creating passive income. You've been featured on U.S. News, CNN Money, Bankrate.com, and your reputation is tremendous. And we want to thank you so much for being with us here today. So thank you. Let's just talk about what's going on. How did you get into the field of saving people money, right? Saving people money and increasing their cash flow. How'd you get into this?
Well, obviously your mess becomes your message sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big part of it. 20 years ago, I started as the mainstream financial advisor, AKA salesman in a suit, right? I'd done that for several years. And after a while, I realized people weren't becoming financially free. So 2006 comes around, and I met a guy that was doing real estate investing, and he kind of opened my eyes to see that nobody becomes financially free with financial advice that is given out there, typically, even from financial advisors. And that's what I noticed. No financial advisor was financially free. And the big epiphany for me was the shift of realizing that it's not about how much money you have just sitting around, right? What it's really about is how much that money is actually paying you. Like, what is that doing to your month-to-month, day-to-day living? And when I started realizing it was about cash flow, right? About having that money coming in and having that ability to always pay your bills. That's when I realized what real freedom was. And so that by the summer of 2006, I actually was out of the rat race, as they would say, myself, where I had more passive income and things coming in than what my expenses were. And it required a few different things of ways to free up money, and as well as be a wise steward of my money, but also be able to be more creative with it. Now, that wasn't the end of the story, of course, because I got egotistical because I was in my late 20s. I have one friend that says the ambition of your 20s catches up to you in your 30s. And so when the recession hit, then all of a sudden it was taken away. I went from, being like a millionaire to an upside down millionaire, where I was over $1 million in debt because I couldn't keep making the bills, right? I had a new business I had just launched in 2007, right before the recession hit. I ended up being short about $16,000 a month. So my income might have been $5,000 or $6,000 a month, but my expenses were $21,000, $22,000 a month. So I was quickly sinking, and I had to get that under control. And that was where my real learning happened. Because see, the first time was good because I created passive income, but the second time got me to really understand what's going on with the whole situation, right? What's that affecting? And so I didn't file for bankruptcy, although it would have been way easier if I did. But I did come back around where by 2016, the end of 2016, I was actually out of the rat race again. I had more than enough money coming in to pay my bills, and I was able to retire by the time I was 39. And now here I am, able to retire, but I don't. I love teaching. I want to keep people progressing because, if I've been blessed with such a gift, why not share it with others?
Oh, that's great. It is so true that our lives shift sometimes, right? And we don't realize what's happening. And so often we're working And, we're not really living the lifestyle that we want. All we're doing is just working, 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 right?
Yeah.
And so you can make a lot of money and you can still be poor, I think, because it's like the more money you make, the more money you spend. It's like this
Mhm.
rabbit wheel you're on. And so true. Now, those out there are listening. I know they're thinking to themselves, well, I know I don't have enough money, right? How do I really dig deep in order to be able to move into something where I can start making some money? So when we're talking about 7 secrets to free up cash, and I know that you've written a book and you're also a wonderful host on a great show. You're the founder of Money Ripples, and you have the show, which is the Chris Miles Money Show.
Mhm.
And so how do you suggest to people to start? Because if they're looking at their life now, how do they start making that shift, that change?
Yeah. And just so you know, I get it, right? I mean, I can guarantee that probably anybody listening hasn't been in a worse financial situation than I was. So I'm not coming from a place of judgment. If anything, a place of empathy,
Right.
because I've been there, and it's not easy. And I've been, single too. I've been a single dad before, and how to get through that, and it's not easy. And so the first thing you want to do, the first thing I say, even in my book on moneyripples.com, is start tracking your money. Like, really track it. And that's a scary thing for a lot of people. Especially when I run into entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs really are scared to look at what's going on with their money. Now, when I talk about tracking money, it's not just tracking expenses, although that's important, but it's tracking income and expenses, both sides of the equation, right? Because what I've found is that when it comes to money, most people live in a life of scarcity, where there's never enough, there's always fear, or there's even like resentment and things around money. But the truth is that you can't have an abundant stewardship mentality, because the scarcity mentality, if you've ever been a spender where you ignore what you spend, right? You always have to keep making more money so that you can be able to keep living. And so you keep making money, but it's easy come, easy go. And the spenders, and they get the bad rap. But the other one that's less criticized is the one of being a saver. See, savers are also in scarcity because they can never pay off their debts fast enough. They hate paying anything to anyone. They hate bills in general, right? They can never save money enough. They never have an end game, right? They never attain any success in their minds. And so they come from a place of scarcity and fear as well, because it's never enough. And for savers, they hyper focus on their expenses, but they forget that income is very important too, because the
Right.
difference between income and expenses, to make that bigger, is key. And you can only get expenses down so far, because some people will just try to get really dirt cheap with their expenses. They try to get down to where they're spending nothing, and then everybody hates them because they make you pay for everything. We don't like those friends,
Yeah.
right?
I've dated a few of those.
Yeah, exactly. They're moochers.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, you don't want to be in that place, and you don't want to be that person. And
Mhm.
so there's a limit, right? You can still have an abundant life, and that's why the name of that ebook is called Beyond Rice and Beans: 7 Secrets to
Mhm.
Free Up Cash Today. Because the Dave Ramsey method has always been get dirt cheap, get that second job delivering pizzas, and live on rice and beans and forever. And I remember listening to a radio show once. I was listening to his radio show, Dave Ramsey. If you've ever heard of him, I mean, he's all big about budgets and getting out of debt and all that sort of thing. The thing is that other than some of the basic stuff he teaches, most of it won't ever get you to be financially free, right? Debt free does not equal financially free, just so you know. I'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But I was listening to the radio show, and this woman came on, and she said, "Yeah, I'm feeling really discouraged because I've paid off $60,000 of debt in the last couple of years, but I still have $90,000 left on my mortgage." And she was lamenting over that. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you should be pretty dang proud you did that. That's pretty incredible. And so she's lamenting that she didn't do it. And she's going through the list of everything she's done. She's like, I got that second job and I was living on rice and beans. And he said, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're living on rice and beans? And she said, well, yeah, you always tell people live on rice and beans. So I've been living on rice and beans for the last 2 years. And he starts laughing at her. He's like, no, like that's a figure of speech. I'm not saying you live on rice and beans. Like what kind of crazy person would do that? And she said, and there was a pause on the radio for about 5 seconds. And she said, oh, well, I did. And that's the kind of scarcity mentality you want to avoid. You don't want to be caught in that trap, right?
Yeah.
So there is a balance. You want to track your money and be a wise steward of it. And yeah, if there's expenses that aren't serving you, get rid of them, right? Find ways to reduce it. Even if it means like, hey, can I lower my internet bill or my TV bill? If you still have a TV bill, I just do streaming now. I don't even do TV. The fact that people say, hey, I got Comcast, I'm thinking you're probably paying too much because who uses Comcast, right?
I know. I still have it, and I've been toying with the idea of getting rid of my cable. So it's like
Yeah,
old fashioned. But the thing is like you've got to be happy, right? You
that's
really
right.
got to think about what it is you're doing, and one thing I have noticed about expenses, because I've been trying to be cautious about that, is
Mhm.
that you get caught up in this web on the internet, right? You get caught up of little stuff like sign up for this, and then next thing you know, you're having this monthly fee taken out. So you
Yes.
really have to watch what you're doing, watch it at every month, what's coming out of your account, so you can kind of
Yeah.
figure out if you've accidentally signed up for something that you need to cancel.
You're absolutely right. Subscriptions is one of the number one things people find, right?
Mhm.
Subscription is a big one for sure. Another one that I didn't even know. There's a few times that worked well, but there's a time I just found out a few weeks ago. My wife told me that she said, "Hey, listen, I just found out because there was several months that she didn't watch the numbers and watch what was coming in and going out of the account. Found out that we actually had $1,250 stolen from our account because somebody got access to one of the debit cards or something.
Mhm.
Didn't even notice because I mean, it's sad that we didn't notice, right? But we didn't because we have lots of money coming in. It just kind of gets lost in the muck of everything else being spent. Just track your money is important. And the truth is, you don't have to spend a lot of time doing it. I personally am ambitiously lazy. I like to work hard, play hard, and
Mhm.
so when it comes to things like this, I don't want to spend a lot of time going through my numbers. And so what I use tools like Mint as an MINT, right? Mint is
Mhm.
a great one. You can use the app or the online. Mint will actually track the money for you. So money coming in and the money going out. Now you have to go and categorize it a little bit, but eventually it picks up on it. It says, oh, every time you go to Chevron or ExxonMobil or whatever, every time you go to those gas stations, that should be gasoline. And so it'll automatically just say gasoline. You don't have to go and do it again. And it's better than trying to track it on paper or anything else where you have to go and like back in the old days where, trying to balance my check register, if you remember that,
Right,
um,
right.
going through and like having to type in the calculator, everything for all the times I gassed up or all the groceries that you did.
Mhm.
And then you said, oh, wait, I forgot where I was. Okay, clear, start again. You
Right,
don't have to do that stuff. Like it does
right.
it for you, and you can see really where the money's going. And I'll tell
Mhm.
you, every time I've had somebody say they're too busy to track their numbers, hands down, every time we find out that when they do actually start tracking their numbers, they find at least $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year, right there. And
Right.
so it's big. It really is.
Yeah. It really makes you aware, like, my son goes to Starbucks a lot, right?
Mhm.
So he sees how much money he's spending on Starbucks. It's like, it's like an addiction, right? And so you have
Yeah.
to you have to really I mean, if it makes you happy and it's really what you want, then fine, spend your money like that. But if
Yeah.
you are trying to save some money, then maybe you could cut back on certain areas. But if we're
Yeah.
not aware of what we do, we can't change anything. We can't make a shift in our lives, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Mhm.
the thing you have to really be aware of, there's like 3 types of expenses, when you're dealing with those expenses, right?
Mhm.
There's productive ones that you need.
Right.
There's consumptive, which is like kinda like the Starbucks, right? It's like, "Hey, it's not that big of a deal," but it's a consumptive thing. It's more like an option. I can have it or I could not. This is kind of like for my own enjoyment. And then
Mhm.
there's destructive expenses. That would be if you're going to Starbucks so many times a day that you get this really horrible addiction and it's killing your health. That would be a destructive expense, right? It could
Mhm.
be all of them, could be either all three. But I'll tell you that many times I've seen that be the case where, like for example, I had a woman who she couldn't figure out. She's making $250,000 a year. She couldn't figure out why they were paycheck to paycheck. And when we went through their numbers, found out she was spending, and I kid you not, she was spending over $5,000 a month eating out. 5,000. That blew my mind, and it blew her mind too. And I was
Mhm.
like, "Are you eating lobster for breakfast? What's going on here?" And she's like, not too far off the truth. Yeah." I said,
Mhm.
"Okay, well, let's do this." I said, "Don't cut it back to 0 because that's ridiculous, right?
Right.
Let's just cut it back to only $1,000 a month eating out." And, we have found out that even groceries, she was overspending on groceries too. And that wasn't going well. So she started to really be more in charge of the groceries and do the shopping herself versus trusting her son-in-law who wanted to be an aspiring chef, to wanted to buy whatever he felt like buying on their credit cards. Right. So we got him to do that. And we found that we saved him about $6,000 a month just on food alone, not including all the other stuff that we found on some of her money leaks.
Right. And when you do things like this, you really kind of feel empowered, don't you? Because when you when you realize, okay, I'm doing this and maybe this isn't the best thing for me to do, you kind of feel a little bad. But then when you make that shift and you correct it, and you start going in a more positive direction, you feel very empowered, that you're actually working towards something.
That's right. You really do. It's a very empowering. And when you do start to do that, it starts benefiting other aspects of your life too, right? Like it could be that your job or your business, you start to become more powerful and owning your position there, and people notice and you get paid more. It's kind of like magic, but it really isn't, right? It's a very, all of our life is psychological. Our health is psychological for the most part. Anything that happens to us health-wise is usually a reflection of what's going on in our head or in our spirit, right? So heal that, get that to a place where you're in an abundant state. Even if it means, like what I had to find out, the only reason I knew I was $16,000 in the hole each month is because I finally had the courage to start tracking my money. And that honesty, right? That being honest with yourself and that truth and willing to look at the reality and the truth, acknowledge it, and then say, okay, this doesn't mean I'm a loser, right? Even though I was the guy that was supposed to have it all figured out. If anybody should have been a loser, it was me, right? But that's not the case, is that this is where we are. All right, let's build back from this. Let's do better. And it's so much more empowering when you do that. And you can, really that honesty is the beginning of progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I think this is very important because I think people, when they really look at their lives, they look at their spending, your spending and how you are, handling your money. If you're starting to get worried or whatever, it affects your health. I mean, it affects everything about you. And so if you can start streamlining things, making things a little bit easier for you, really start figuring out why are you spending some of the way you're spending, some of the things that you're doing, why are you doing it? And, maybe it can definitely help you in another direction,
Absolutely.
different mindset for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have to take a quick break. And when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about the 7 secrets to free up cash today. And, if we can do that and help some people create a little bit of a shift, I think it would be actually wonderful for that. So we have Chris Miles here with us. He is a cash flow expert. He's an authority on quickly creating wealth and increasing your monthly cash flow, creating passive income. And that is all. We all need that. So we all need this advice. So this is really, truly wonderful. So thank you so much for being with us here today. And before we take our quick break, I want to be able to give the audience your information to how to reach you and everything. You can go to moneyripples.com and you can see his website there. And also, if you want to email him, all you have to do is email Chris, CHRIS, at moneyripples.com. And then if you want to give him a call, his number is 253-640-4857. So again, that's 253-640-4857. Tell him that you saw him here on the show. We'd appreciate it. And we do have, before we take the break, we've got a quick comment here. I'm neither a high income employee. I'll pass on this topic. Okay, then. Go pass on the topic. But
easy come, easy go. There you go.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I tell you what. Yeah. I mean, this is, and one thing I want to say is that these tips that we're giving today, it can work for whatever income bracket you're in and whatever you're doing. So to look at your money and to realize where you're spending your money maybe incorrectly for you, you're not saving enough. Maybe you want to buy a house. Maybe there's certain things you want to do. You want to pay off your car, various different things that you want to do. these tips and what we're talking about today is real life. It's real life for anybody, no matter how much money they're making and what they're doing. So, Deborah, we hope that you will listen to the show and enjoy it. And we want to thank you for listening to us here on the network. Again, you guys can reach Chris at moneyripples.com. And then also Money Ripples is his website. His phone number is 253-640-4857. You guys are listening to the Business Showcase. This is WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I'm Cece Shatz. We'll be right back. Go grab a cup of coffee and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are on the Business Showcase Lunch Hour show, and we want to thank you guys for being with us here today. I am Cece Shatz, the Doyenne of Relationship Building. I'm the president of Going Solo Network. You can find all of our information right on GoingSoloNetwork.com. We've got our wonderful guest here today, Chris Miles. We're talking about the 7 secrets to free up cash today. And you are a Chris, you are a cash flow expert. You've been, featured in U.S. News, CNN, Bankrate.com. I mean, your reputation is tremendous. We want to thank you for spending the time here to spend with us. We talk about business a lot, because we are on the Business Showcase, and we talk about business a lot. And a lot of us have small businesses. A lot of us are moving from, in our sector here, from a relationship loss, thinking, okay, I'm going to have to, my income now, is probably halved. My assets are halved, and what am I going to do? Maybe I need to start a business. So that's something that's very common here for the listeners out there today. And so, Chris, what would you say with regards to those that are looking at starting a business, thinking about how to progress in this world today? Because we're going through some real challenges here in our world today. And so it's not so easy to make a business. So any suggestions or recommendations with regards to income, creating some wealth as we move forward in business?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the opposite end of things. We talk about expenses, right? And that's something that could work for even somebody making a couple thousand a month, In fact, I actually have helped people making only a couple thousand a month. But when it comes to the other side of the equation, that's more exciting is the income side, because that's limitless. You can only cut back expenses so far before you're living in a cardboard box and it doesn't work anymore. But income, you really do need. And then, in fact, I was just on a news segment in North Carolina. They had interviewed me. They said, what do you think with the Russia-Ukraine thing? What's going on? What should people do? And of course, they're thinking like, should they, hold steady in their 401ks? And I'm like, no, they should probably cash them out. They might want to consider that. And hey, you probably shouldn't be putting money in 401ks. You probably should be getting more money in savings at home instead of locking it up in your company and you can't get to it, right? and all this kind of stuff. And I said, and getting a second, for those that didn't have a lot of income, getting a second job or having a side hustle like a business could be really important. Um, here's the key that I learned, is when it comes to making money, it's actually really formulaic. It's actually really simple, but no one teaches it to be that way. They teach you that you have to have a good degree, you have to have something of value that the world says is valuable. But the truth is that that's a bunch of crap, because I'm a college dropout technically, make way more than people with PhDs. And it's not because I work harder, because honestly, I don't work that many hours compared to most people with full-time jobs. In fact, when I was a single dad, I was working maybe 5-10 hours a week because that's all I could do, especially with the emotions of going through a divorce. It was tough.
Right.
And so, when you're going through that kind of situation, the real key is not about how many hours you work. You stop trading time for money. Now, there are some jobs that can be great, and not everybody should be a business owner. And if you can find a great job that you can provide some skills for, do it. But if you can do a business, do something that aligns with your strengths and especially with your passions, because those passions will carry you through. And often those passions will amplify the strengths you have in that business. Here's the secret. The secret of making money is this: focus on creating value for people. How do I solve problems? How do I add value? How do I serve people in a way that money is the natural byproduct? Now, understand that even when I was a financial advisor, I did understand this. I thought, I just got to work hard or sell stuff, right? But that's not true. It always comes back to, how do you serve people, solve problems, and add value in their lives in a way that they want to exchange money to get that in their lives, because their lives are better for it.
Right.
That's the real key. And so whatever you decide to do, and you could do it in so many different professions. There's no like one profession that's going to be better than the other. It's all about, how do I solve these problems, and how do I allow people to serve me too? Am I willing to ask for the money in return? Because some of us get this kind of money monk mentality, right? Where we feel like, I'm not in it for the money. I'm here to serve you. Well, the truth is that money allows you to serve more people. I mean, just last night, I had such a blessed opportunity. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but never had. But I had some friends that we got together, and we went to this restaurant, and this restaurant, of course, we know with the pandemic, they got hit pretty hard. And this restaurant had amazing Mexican food, like organic, elevated food. But you can never tell by looking at the restaurant, because it's like this shack. It's literally on a street corner, and it's a small little place. The floorboard was loose. I almost tripped on it. And it's a great place with the food way better than what the location looks. And we went in there. There was about 40 of us, and the servers were there, and they were racing around because we took up the entire restaurant. There's only room for 40 people. And when all was said and done, we presented them with our tips, which totaled to be $30,000. And you could tell the servers were just blown away, like they were crying, and even the owner. And the first thing I thought in my mind is, fix that floorboard. Like the food, that the place needs to match the food. So
Right.
that's something that I could not have done had I not created more money. Right? I mean, drop it $1,000 tip. That was not something that I would have done, especially during my financial advisor days, because I was lucky to make a couple thousand in a month.
Right.
But to be able to do that, to serve and be able to share that wealth, that happens because the more you show up to serve more people, the more money you make. And that's the beautiful thing. I mean, that's what it should be. And that is true even if you're an employee. I've had employees that have been clients of mine that have gone and increased their monthly income by thousands a month, even in the same job role they're in, or getting a promotion. Because if they show up to serve and they stop asking, hey, stop saying to themselves, I'm entitled to a raise. Like, that entitlement mentality is the worst mentality, and it's becoming more prevalent now. What better way to stand out than not to have an entitlement mentality and say, you know what, I'm here to serve. Here's a key thing. If you're working as a job, key thing as an employee, to ask your manager or your employer, say, what would I need to do to merit me a raise? Don't just say, I want a raise, but just say, what could I do? What could I do to add value to the company or to you that would merit me a raise? And then let them answer. I had one client, he was a friend of mine, and he went and did that. He was making $15 an hour as a cameraman. And the next thing you know is within a year and a half, he's making $29 an hour. He'd almost doubled his income, all because he asked that one question. And they even told him, they're like, no more raises. But he kept trying to over deliver. He kept trying to go the extra mile and serve them didn't necessarily mean he had to do a lot of longer hours, although there was occasions that he did, but it meant he came and he showed up to work and to really like almost like he owned that company, that business himself. He had the ownership mentality of his position, his role, and that translated, and that money came back because here's the thing. Even if they don't appreciate it, someone else will, and they will buy you for it. I promise you. And it's worked time and time again for many of my clients and even in my own life. It's always true. If you come with that service mentality instead of how you want to be served and that entitlement mentality, it's amazing what kind of miracles you can create.
Yeah, it amazes me too, is that when you have that mentality, things just seem to work out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like when you least expect it, things happen. Things happen to the positive. And so it is true if you definitely have that. So those that are looking at business and they're doing business, I was told a long time ago is to not think about not having just one revenue stream. Think about various different revenue streams. Because one drives up, then you're still okay with another one. So
Yes.
is that still stand true today?
Absolutely, 100% true. We're in a world where we were told there were certain businesses that were non-essential, right? And now they're telling nurses and military people, you're non-essential, right? If you don't do what we ask, you're non-essential now. And that's a crazy world that I never thought we would live in. I never thought that even being an entrepreneur where I have 100% control of my company, could all of a sudden someone come in and say, you can be shut down today. You're done. And you need multiple streams of income. So I agree. Now when you're starting a business, you start with that main stream of income, you focus, right? You get that going. But once you get a rhythm, once that gets going, then focus on interjecting additional streams. Can you do something that's more residual or passive? Can you throw in memberships and things that are more like monthly memberships? Can you throw in things that are like digital products or physical products that go along with that service? What can you do to enhance it? Are there ancillary services that maybe you don't do it, but you partner with somebody else, right? Where it might be a support. For example, in my world, I'm not going to be doing everything, right? I used to be that guy. I was mortgage licensed. I was insurance licensed. I was securities licensed to sell mutual funds. I even did debt programs and everything else to try to be the one-stop shop. The amazing thing that freed up my time and got me to make more money was when I said, wait a minute, what if I farm that out to somebody else? What if I let somebody else do that work? I remember the first time I got that idea was a friend who was a millionaire. He said, well, Chris, you're doing these mortgages. Do you like doing mortgages? I said, well, I like getting people the results. I like teaching them about it, but I hate the paperwork. I can't stand paperwork. And so he said, well, then find somebody who does like that. I said, well, those people don't exist. Who would be crazy enough to like to do paperwork? He said, Chris, there's lots of people that will do it. And so I remember going back to my broker and I said, hey, is there somebody in here that would be willing to split a deal with me where they do all the back end work, all the paperwork? And they said, we got just the guy for you. Talk to Clark. And so I did. And I said, hey, Clark, if I send these people to you, like they're already ready, they know what kind of loan they want. I just want you to do all the work. And I said, would you split that 50-50? And he said, yes. And it blew my mind that someone would actually say yes, but he did. And for him, it was a very fair partnership because he didn't have to go and find people. I would just spoon feed him these people and just send him his way. He would do the work. And that kind of abundance perspective, taking that scarcity lens off to say, wait a minute, not only does it allow me to free up more time, but actually make more money in less time. And then he makes more money too. So it actually creates this abundant world for everybody. And that's the thing. Like you can create multiple streams of income by not doing the work or the service. But if it's something that ties in nicely with what you're trying to do, great. Bring that in. Say, hey, I would love to have your service help with that. And maybe you can agree upon some sort of split, if you can. Now, in my world, you have to have certain licenses. I don't have all the licenses, so I don't always do that. But there's other ways you can be compensated, right? There's so many different ways you can do it. You do that in your business, that you'll find out there's multiple ways to make money there. And I would say this, as you start to build and grow, one mistake that people do when they go into business is they try to reinvest in their business over and over and over. Now, especially early on, there's purpose in reinvesting your business by basically spending money to help it make more money. But that can become a bad habit. I've seen business owners who have reinvested in their business for decades, and then they say, yeah, I don't have anything to show for it. Like if this business stops, I'm screwed, for lack of a better word. And so I said, listen, this is where you got to start taking some of your profits out. Take out some of that money, get those profits, build up some savings, build up some financial security for yourself. Because I'll promise you this, if you're in the business world, people can sense when you're desperate, when you need money. In fact, the one time that people never want to pay you is when you need money, because they
Right.
just sense it off you. They feel, I call it business breath, right? They just, you feel icky. They're the people you meet at networking events where they throw business cards at you and you don't even know their name. They're just like, call me, do business with me. And they're just desperate. Nobody ever does business with those people, or very few ever do. And you work way harder for less work. But if you can show up confident, knowing, you know what, I don't need that one customer or that one client, because I've got this nice little savings here. I got something that will cover me. Even if it's $1,000, you could say, you know what, that makes a payment for me. That's a car payment or a house payment or rent or whatever. I'm good there. Start building that up. And as you start to build that up, eventually you're going to have more and more, to the point where you'll say, now I got so much in savings. Now I feel like I'm losing money, because what can I do with this money? And that's where it goes into the world that more I work with now, beyond just like those money leaks, is now let's find ways to create passive income and get, other things like real estate paying you, where you can make money there and create real wealth, versus gambling it in the stock market that doesn't make you that much money anyways. And so
Right.
now you start to get this more exciting world that pretty soon you realize you don't really need the money from the business. And when you don't need the money, that's when everybody wants to pay you,
Mhm.
because then you're showing up to serve. You're showing up with true intentions. They can feel that congruency from you. They can feel that abundance mindset from you, and they're drawn to you. They're attracted to you. And so business becomes easier. You don't have to struggle and try and work so hard. It comes to you naturally, because again, you're in that abundant place. But it all starts with just that first dollar you take as profit, put it into a little savings account. It's just a
Mhm.
start. Even if it's just $1 a week or $1 a month, do it and
Mhm.
build that habit and start to increase that over time. And it will seem like a slow path that you have to be very patient on at first. But like anything, just like riding a bicycle, where it takes a little extra effort to get out of that first gear, and then you get faster and faster, and you build that momentum, you get this like exponential curve that just shoots up. And that's where I went from being, even in 2015, I was going through a divorce and I lost almost everything. My business was going down. I was not making a lot of money because I was so emotionally told, right? I just couldn't do anything other than manage my current clients. And I was working maybe 5 hours a week. The great thing is my business didn't just disintegrate, but it was a real struggle for several months to get out of that emotional funk, right?
Mhm.
But when I got really focused on how do I create multiple streams of income, even especially passive income, I put that focus in that next year. Pretty soon it started to build up. And by end of 2016, about a year or so later, I was there. I
Mhm.
was financially independent, and I said, wow, now I can decide whether I want to keep working or not. And that's such a powerful place to be.
Yeah. It sounds like too that, you think out of the box, you're creative. And so those out there that are listening, I think that that's what we have to be
Mhm.
in business today. We have to be creative. And so it's saving and then trying to build that up, and then deciding what you're going to do with those funds to make them work for you was truly the answer. So for sure. Yeah. Well, I tell you, we're going to have to go. It's the time has gone by very quickly. Are there any last words you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I'll just say this, is that there's always hope. And I get where you're at. I mean, I haven't been in all your situations, and there needs to be grace. And just like good old Deborah that gave that comment before, right? She's like, well, this
Mhm.
doesn't apply to me. This does apply to you. This applies no matter what level you're at, whatever income level, whatever situation you're in, this applies. And I'll just tell you that don't overlook it, and don't just listen to this, but find a way to act on it. Because really, it's when you act and you start to change things and do things differently and see and think differently, when you start to come from a more abundant place, everything changes. Everything starts to shift. Things
Mhm.
get easier. And I mean, that's the thing, is that don't ignore, don't ignore anything. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and just know that there's grace in your situation. You are perfectly where you are, and that's okay. It's just a matter of what do you decide to do from here is going to make the real difference in your life. I mean, either you can choose to stay in a cycle that might feel like pain, or you
Mhm.
can move into a cycle where you have empowerment, where you say, you know what, I don't need that. I don't need a man. Like I have some of my friends are like, oh, if I could just have a man, then I won't have to worry about money. You don't
Mhm.
need that.
No.
You can really be solo and powerful yourself. And watch what happens. When you get that abundant state, you'll attract the right people into your life at the right time, whether that's personally, professionally, whatever. Just know that there's hope.
Yeah. Great advice. Absolutely great advice. You're spot on. And, information is fuel, isn't it? I mean, the more information we have, maybe today we don't necessarily need that particular bit of information, but you never know down the line where that's going to come into play. And you're going to say, oh yeah, I remember watching this show and he said this and that. And then you can put it into action. So yeah. So information is definitely fuel. So never turn, a blind eye to something. Always be open to be able to grasp things. So you are a wonderful person. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. We appreciate it, Chris. I want to share again your information. His website is Money Ripples. Please go on the website, check it out. And if you want to send him an email, tell him that you saw the show, or if you have any questions about maybe your own situation, you can email him. It's Chris, CHRIS, @moneyripples.com. You can give him a quick call if you want. It's 253-640-4857. He's very busy, so I'm not sure, with regards to that, but you could try to leave a message. But the best route is probably to email. And so that's Chris @moneyripples.com. And we want to thank you so much for spending the time with us here today, helping people go through really tough times to be able to understand that, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so, we can have a life that we choose. And so we just have to connect with great people like yourself, Chris. So thank you so much for the time you spent with us today. I appreciate it.
I really appreciate the time to serve you, Cece. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Well, gosh, today went by very quickly. And again, we talked about 7 secrets to free up cash today with our wonderful guest, Chris Miles. He's a cash flow expert. I mean, successful in his own right, really taking the time out to be with us here today on the Business Showcase. And we want to thank him so much for that. So you guys, I'm Cece Shatz. We're signing off. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I hope that you'll catch me on the GoingSoloNetwork.com. And then all of our information is right there on GoingSoloMedia.com. And you can email me at GoingSoloNetwork.com. So all you got to remember is Going Solo, right? And we've got it together. Love you guys. I'll talk to you later. And I hope this was great for you. Bye.